So I think that we have run the longest standing April Fool's joke on anybody that listens to us, because last week we announced that we're going to talk about other shit, which we have been doing since we started. We have never been 100% fab. We've just rambled forever. 5 people unsubscribed. I laughed my ass off when I watched our subscribers count went down. I'm like, you guys must be fucking stupid that you were listening this long, and then we tell you what we were doing, even though we were already doing it. We tell you what we're doing, and then that's enough. I can't have any more of these guys. This
That's
is
funny.
this is too much.
Maybe honestly, like you might be right. It might be because like that announcing that denotes some level of organization, and maybe they're like, I don't like this organized shit. I don't want it. To your point, Jason,
Yeah.
you're like, people love the rambling, people love the randomness. They're like, nah, it's too organized now. They're organizing their love of other games. Fuck
And
that.
as long as I'm on here, it's never going to be truly organized because
No, just
something's
before
going to pop in my head.
before we
And
came on tonight, you were like pushing back against like the little amount of organization that we wanted to like add to it.
yeah, fuck organization. And
Like we should
And
think
fuck
about
you who unsubscribed. You all suck. I can say that because you're not obviously listening. So do you think those people that unsubscribe, they're like, I'm just gonna go listen to this one, make a horrible comment, and then leave? Like, I don't know. I just think it's funny.
To be fair, I mean, we've never really been one for being horrible comments. Even that's the irony is that
we don't
so
draw a lot of like hate in the
yeah,
comments at all.
it seems like we are either neutral enough, like people's feelings about us are neutral enough that they just don't have the energy to like fight us in the comments, or just turn us off and leave. They get so frustrated that they just walk away from it completely. Like that's the only reasoning that we could be not getting any real comments or negative or fight back or anything like that. People just leave. They literally people get so frustrated with us that they have to just turn it off and walk away. They can't even bring themselves to comment because they're that frustrated and upset about it.
That or they just look in the comments and they're like, okay, listen, this one dude is just fucking. He handles all the commenting that this channel needs.
Yeah. We don't need we had a lot of comments this week.
I will look at like noon and I'll be like, shit, dude, 17 comments, and it's fucking all of them are. Oh god, I was
Andrew.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Thank you. I want to say,
Yeah, but this
Austin, like
last
it's
time it
not.
wasn't. There was a
there
lot
was
of
quite a few, yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
I like. You see, Andrew knows how the system works, though. That's why he
Yeah.
knows that it's
Well,
better
that-
to leave comments like that than it is just to leave one long one.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's honestly easier to read and like not
It
lose
is
stuff.
because
Yeah,
if you
easier to
listen, like,
respond to.
so I listen to
that
stuff. So I listened to this is interesting. So I'm getting off topic right off the bat. Not even nothing that we've even discussed.
I have such good show notes
gonna
this
talk
week.
about Rudy?
They were
No,
my
okay.
show notes were so laid out and
I'm
planned.
gone. I'm already gone. I'm already gone because this brings up a good point. So when I work, I listen to stuff here and there, right? So Team Covenant did a live stream yesterday, I believe, and I didn't catch it, didn't see it, but it was about sorcery. I was very intrigued with the whole beta thing that they had coming out. So I understand that, and I left a comment on that one because I'm curious if they'll respond, number one, but about the 150. They spent a long time talking about this is how I know they know it's expensive. They justified it without comments. So anytime, like, you go to a wedding, you're wearing a Speedo and that's your outfit. And you just show up and start talking about your Speedo and why you're wearing it, you did wrong by talking about it. Nobody asked you, nobody said anything, but you're talking about the Speedo you wore to the wedding.
Yeah.
So they started justifying the price by how many packs and Pokemon. And I'm like, you are comparing a game that has never been released to a game that's been around for 30 fucking years. That's a real tough comparison to draw in. So it was very interesting to see them tiptoeing, which we had discussed last week, already tiptoeing that issue. And I'm curious if they'll say anything. And I wish I was on the live stream to ask questions on that one. But, same thing. You leave comments as you go, because if you wait till the end, I for sure at my age will forget the comment I was going to leave 20 minutes before when the podcast started.
Yeah, I would have to like write my comments in a message separate, like in a note or something, and then copy and paste it at the end when they were all a composed thought. So yeah, definitely. I think some of it is he comments on YouTube how I text, which is in individual thoughts as opposed to paragraphs, because I am always concerned that what's going to happen is my thoughts are going to get broken apart too much. If I type one thing, we're gonna be on the next subject. All my friends are just as chaotic, and
We've talked about this before, man, because
yeah,
I still,
100%.
think, I know Jason doesn't read them when they're long, but I still think that like, because my points feed off.
Well, I
of each
will
other.
not read
And
along.
like when
Yeah.
when I type 2 sentences, my next 2 sentences will build off of those 2 sentences, and I don't want someone to miss any of the context. I'm an artist.
That's why I read all of Andrew's, because like it's almost tailored to me, and I'm gonna just pretend like it is, because if it was a lot, I just wouldn't read any of it. But it's usually 2-3 sentences, and I get a kick out of it, and he's pretty good and he's pretty funny.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's good spice to that, and just boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom. So I enjoy that type of comment. And most comments are on ours are pretty short, and if they're lengthy, I don't read it. So if they're like yelling and they really get into this dissertation bitching about us, it went on deaf ears, because I didn't read that shit. All right. You failed.
I respond to things that deserve my time and energy to respond to, and that's not people who are complaining. That's people who are being funny and engaging and say something. I have even got to the point now where like it feels weird to like or heart something if someone is saying something funny. So I'll just give them the ha ha ha, because they've earned my like 10 letters, and I gotta
Funny you bring that up. I feel like a lot of the comments on our stuff are what I will call rhetorical comments.
yeah
There's
Yeah.
no interaction needed.
Yeah.
It's just a great blanket statement or funny thing,
mhm,
and it's patronizing if you give them like a haha. Like sometimes, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah
yeah, we know that's funny. You did a good
yeah
job. I read it. I'm happy. I love reading comments. I do. That
yeah.
is enjoyable. Like I feel like we're not ripped on enough in the comments. I feel like there was a lot more hate at the beginning, and the hate has died.
Yeah,
I don't know what it
yeah.
is.
You know what it is? Okay, so I was talking to Hamish from Push the Point today. He messaged me, talking about he actually like was checking to make sure everything was good, because he noticed that we had just when they put a podcast. I was like, yeah, we're just on a long break. We kind of got busy. We've been doing this for a long time, so it was nice to take an extended break and kind of just
Mhm.
give ourselves a little bit of a reprieve. And we were just talking about I asked him if they got a spoiler. He said they did.
Nice.
I commented on the fact that I really think they deserved it, because they work really hard. They put out
Mhm.
really good stuff. I think they maybe have one of the best intros in all of like all of fab podcasting, because they didn't try to do anything epic. They have this like funny, almost sitcom vibe coming in, like a
Yeah.
classic 70s sitcom feel to the
100%.
song. I love it. I think it's great. But they also do a lot of work to do deck techs and interviews and all stuff. And that stuff's a ton of work,
Mhm.
because not everybody that you interview on a podcast is just cut and play,
You
right?
guys
You don't
remember
just
when we did deck techs and interviews?
Too much work.
yeah. It was a lot of
It
work.
was our last interview. So our last interview, and so we're taking credit for this right now. You heard it here first. Was Michael Hamilton, correct? That was our last interview we did.
Yeah, I think
Or
we
first-
I'd
interviewed
have
him.
to look. Yeah.
We're just gonna say
interviewed
it
him.
is. It is.
Yeah.
It is. It is. I'm just saying it is. And that is what has now propelled him to the best player in the world. So you're welcome, Michael Hamilton,
If
for
anybody
coming on
else
the
wants,
Outcast Haven. Because before us, you'd won one soft calling, one soft one. After us, I mean, look at where you've come.
Yeah.
It's the Outcast.
Right. So I was talking about getting back to kind of what I was saying, right? So I was talking to Hamish, and I told him I definitely refer. I have a short list of things that I refer people to. I typically refer them to Arsenal Pass, because They have great interviews. They do a lot of deck techs. They're very quality
That team
content.
is amazing at playing the game.
Yeah. It's like there are and then
Spicy today.
I love to do push the point because they do a lot of interviews and deck techs and stuff, which I think is good for new players. Like when people come in, and he always he goes, I always recommend you guys, especially if the person likes hot spicy takes. And I said, I have accepted that there are people who do high quality content, like the equivalent of blogging or writing articles in video form. And then there are people like us who do the equivalent of podcast shit posting. Like that's what we do, is like the people who go on to Facebook. I'm one of them and love to just don't comment on anything. I don't like anything. And just randomly, when things get all heated between people or somebody gets up in arms, I just make a meme. It's spicy. It's going to cause a bunch of friction and unnecessary tension in people, and everyone's going to get angry from both sides at it. And I just drop the meme in. I just shit post it, right? Like that's what I love to do. So I was like, that's what I want to do in podcasting. That's what we do. We just come in, and it's like now we've said so much nonsensical stuff. We just say what we think, and people know that they just kind of have embraced it. And they're like, I either love it or I hate it. And sometimes even when I hate it, I watch it because it's like a train wreck. It's like I watch it it's like people like you need to get ready to like lift a lot of weight and you want to just get rage. You don't have your friend slap you. You listen to a hot take on our podcast and you're just like, oh my God, I can't stand them. Deadlift the most you've ever deadlifted. That's what you do.
Can I?
So yeah, go ahead.
I was
Go ahead,
just gonna,
Dane.
nah. You know what? Never mind. I'll save it for later.
So there's a YouTube channel that I watch for board gamings, and I use watch with the air quotes. So the guy's channel is Tim Chuan, Chuon. It is the best produced video and audio you will ever see.
Mm-hmm.
His takes fucking suck. Like you can be really good at everything, but then there's a couple channels. There's another one that I really like as well called the Quackalope. Very good. I shouldn't say I don't like it. Very good audio and sound. Everything else is fucking horrible. Like it's the same. There's no I don't know. Just
there was one
the
channel
best
where like their audio and stuff was good, but like the dude on it is just a fucking twat.
that's probably the one I was just talking about.
It's like Yadis Gaming
Oh,
or
no.
something like that. Like
No,
it's like Yotis. Yotes.
Yotes.
Oh yeah,
Yo-
thank you. I agree with that. But my audio and video is not always great. It comes and it goes. Then you have the guys that are just so what is it? I can't think of it. No, they hate something and then love it, and it's like, well, we can see where the money's at.
Opinionated?
It's just
yeah.
no, you just
or
paid. I don't know. Whatever Blake was gonna say.
Oh yeah. No, I thought you were going the other way and you were going to talk about the people who have good quality and good editing, but are have such perfect and great personalities. They're so engaging that you just have like every time I watch a Shut Up and Sit Down review,
love them.
I
Awesome.
cannot stop watching it. I have to watch every minute of it for the best reasons because I don't even care. Like Jason owns Too Many Bones.
Shut Up and Sit Downs too. I was just gonna say their Too Many Bones review is fucking glorious. It is just
every one of their reviews is glorious. They're the best content creator in board gaming there is, and it's not even close.
It's not even close. They did a I don't remember what game it's for, but it's the war game where you play through like a World War II conflict.
Undaunted, maybe?
Yeah, it's one of the maybe it might have been Undaunted. I think that's what it is. But the way that he presents that game, I'm like, I want the game. I don't know if I want the game. I want it. I want it so bad because he's so funny and he makes me I enjoy the experience of the game through him enjoying the experience of the game. Like it makes me enjoy the game. And I haven't even played it. I've never played any of those board games.
They just released one today for a game that I wanted to buy the game. The first 13 to 15 minutes of the review, I was already looking it up to totally trashing it at the end of the video. And I'm like, okay, I want nothing to do with this game anymore. Like they had me buying the game to just nope. It's a nope. It's a nope for me. I'm gonna pass.
Yeah.
They're so good at they are very good at their jobs. Just because of that. They give you the high points of why this game's good, and then why is this game a piece of shit, or why
Yeah.
this is why it's great. It's hard to do that. It is hard. Like I don't know that I can do that the way they are so true to their craft of loving and hating things and finding the best and the worst in the same product.
That is something that we struggle with because we're opinionated. Like we have our stances and like that's it. I really loved Bonehead Podcast did a a couple episodes of their latest, I don't know if it was their latest or their 2 ago podcast, where they debated on whether or not Games Workshop was good for Blood Bowl. And it was fucking awesome because they randomly rolled to see what side of the debate they were going to be on. And they debated that. And
Well, that's awesome.
And then
so they rolled dice for their debate.
Yeah, they're like, "Are you for?"
I honestly could do that.
On a 4 up, you're for it. On a 3 or less, you're against it. And like they rolled for it, and people ended up on sides they didn't believe in, but they still.
So this is what we're gonna do. You're gonna earmark this. We want whoever to comment to come up with a debate for us, and there's gonna have to be 2 to 3 sides. Like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would be perfect. And we will roll dice for those sides. Because I have a friend group, and one of my friends is really, really conservative, like very, very right wing. And I lean conservative, but I will just poke and prod at anything conservative to get him going. And it's one of the true joys of my life is to take a point that I agree with him on, but take the devil's advocate and just go at him with it. Oh God, I enjoy that so much.
So that was something that my dad did to me. And believe it or not, I used to be really incapable, like completely incapable of ever hearing another person's side. And I would get so heated about you could literally
believe
it or not. Okay.
Yeah, believe it.
I used to be worse than I am. You could like argue with me and I don't even care. You could be like, this vanilla ice cream is superior to this vanilla ice cream. And I would have no stance on it whatsoever. But because you picked a side, I just had to argue. I had to choose one and I had to go with it. And my dad would get me going. And then he would do this thing that made me so angry because it was so level-headed, where I would start to raise my voice and I'd be like, "Are you kidding? Oh my God, I can't even believe this has actual vanilla bean in it. It's in the recipe, Dad. It's in the ingredients." And he'd be like, "Look, we're going to debate this. We are not going to argue. The debate, we're exchanging concepts and ideas in order to learn from one another and grow from this." I'm like, "Oh my God, we're talking about ice cream. Are you trying to calm this down?" And like in my head, I was being completely rational, that I would want to just start to yell at him. And he would just be like, "I'm not going to do this. We're going to have a level-headed discussion about this. We're going to try and learn from each other and exchange ideas." And I'm irrationally arguing about ice cream. And it made me more angry that my dad was like just being calm about it than anything else in the world. Like that made me more angry than any argument moment has ever made me in my life, is that my dad could, in the middle of me being angry at him, just go, "Hey, I'm not going to do this." And I'm like, "How dare you not yell at me? How dare you not scream back at me about which vanilla is superior?"
That is, yeah, never
That
mind.
that's your second good point that you canceled yourself on, Dane. We appreciate that.
I was about to bring up the army again, and like I feel like I do that too much. Like,
that's what we call a life experience. You have life experience in the army, that's fine to bring it up if that's where your life experience
honestly
is
don't
from.
talk about it ever, and it feels weird to me that I keep, like, you guys keep raising points that like make me want to be like, "Oh yeah," but like I don't ever I don't want to be one of those guys that talks about it a lot. But you guys fucking bring up points where I'm like, "Oh shit."
To be honest, and I've worked with quite a few army guys, and most army people I know that I have personally knew do not talk about service at all.
It feels weird too.
So what I think it's one or the other. It's always one or the other. It's like you're on one end of the spectrum or the other, where you talk about it a lot, and it's like this huge point of pride. It's the only thing that matters in your life, or you just don't want to talk about it.
People I know, they just never talk about it.
Yeah.
I'd never tell you I was going to go into the Coast Guard, Dane.
No, I don't know if you ever have. No.
Yeah, I was 19, took the ASVAB, passed it. You know, got to pick where I was going to go, and then got my horrific motorcycle accident.
You know what's crazy here? You know what's crazy about that?
Jesus.
I was ready to go in the military. I passed the ASVAB, and I was playing in a tournament, a basketball tournament, and a kid fell into my knee.
Yeah, I did know this. I knew this story.
Yeah. A kid fell into my knee, and then my timing was weird. I wasn't going to be able to leave in time, so I had to make the choice to either just sit around and wait until the next time I could leave, or just start college. And I had already been accepted to college, so I just went into college, and then I never went in the military.
I just started racing motorcycles and did nothing for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
We all make our choices.
We all make our choices. Jason, I didn't make it into the military, so I started racing motorcycles. Me, I went and got a secondary education. Now, granted, we were both probably in about the same amount of debt and got about the same out of it because I didn't get that college degree. I had to go back to college later.
Yeah, I didn't get my degree until I was like 35. That's when I finally got my finance degree. So,
but
wildly flesh and blood.
Yeah.
What is that? What are we talking about?
Talk about a topic to discuss. So we obviously have to start with the big topic that everybody is concerned about, which is the Indy results. So we get Indy. We had another Icelander win. Ice reigned supreme in the top 8. 7 of the top 8 decks were Ice decks. There were Icelander or Oldham, and then there was Tarek, who was on basically a Briar Fatigue deck. So the most important question in all of Flesh and Blood is simply this: is Ice busted? Is really just a product of the fact that the best players played it? Because, spoiler alert, if you play Michael Hamilton, he could probably play Azalea, beat your ass. Or do people just need to get good and stop being meta slaves? Is it just a product of the fact that people are like trapped in this cycle of like, they think Oldham is the best, so they play Oldham?
So I was thinking about this on the drive home, because you have two things happening right now. You have people bitching about aggro stuff, and then you have the counter, your Ice people bitching back at them, the get good argument. But with what you said, the top players are all playing Ice and all playing Control, right?
Yep.
The top players are picking that as the best deck. That is what everybody's earmarking as the best deck. It's obviously the best deck. Is Ice overpowered? It does one thing that no other deck can do. It consistently affects your opponent's next turn.
It interacts with your opponent in a way that nothing else interacts with them.
Nothing does. The hit effects of any other deck besides Azalea, and spoiler alert, she's not great. Okay, I don't know if anybody knows, Azalea's not great. She has the best hit effects out of any hero. Not great. So just mark her down as not great if you're keeping track at home. Other than that, these are the only decks that have done something. Is it busted? I don't know. I honestly think and this is not being, Bolton can go against some of these. Like, it sounds weird, but after playing him, people will now, the top players that picked Ice, I'm a lazy net decker, and I'm talking for myself too. I just don't play what everybody else is playing, so that's why I won't play these decks now. So I'm just going to go into Ice as well. So that's why your local metas turn into Ice, and the creativity starts to die. And then that's what, then you have then LSS has to step in, right? And ban and errata cards to try to artificially adjust the meta, because one of it is laziness. I can't, am I being off by saying that?
I don't think it's laziness. It might be.
Well, what do you call it? If you go net deck,
I think it comes down to people wanting
that's laziness.
Be efficient with their time. Like, a lot of people that go to locals and stuff probably don't commit the amount of brain space that we commit to games in general. So they're like, all right, this is my 3 games that I get to play this week. what's good so I don't go and just get my ass kicked for my one game night this week, and they grab like what did well. Like I don't think it's necessarily laziness as much as it is them just wanting to be like efficient with the time that they do get to play.
I mean, being
So
efficient, being lazy. We're fighting over the same word there a little bit.
I mean, there's a pretty
You're making it sound better, so I could say it the same way. They're being efficient with their dex choices by taking somebody else's hard work.
which I don't think is always effective. There's a difference between being efficient
No,
and
no,
being
it's
effective.
it's like
but-
Icelander. If you don't have practice with her, you can't just grab that deck and go win. It's a hard deck. Oldham, I would argue, you probably could if you have, 3/4 of a brain. Half you probably can't, but 3/4 of a brain, I think with Oldham, you're good. You just he's accidentally going to win a couple, right?
Yeah, I
He's
think
he's a deck that can
yeah.
accidentally win.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about the perceived ice meta is the fact that the ice decks are winning because when they get into top cut, they have the most room to influence your opponent's game plan. And when that is given to a very good player, turns out control is good. When control players in any game have access to the best tools or very good tools and they know how to counter the other decks, spoiler alert, control decks are real good at not letting other people play. And I think the big thing with Flesh and Blood is that you have your control decks. You've got Icelander, you've got Oldham. What are the best counters to those decks? It's not aggro. Is decks that operate in a space they struggle to operate, like they struggle to interact with.
It's like mid range, which is very difficult. You need to be extremely well practiced into the control,
Yeah.
to know how to play your
I
particular mid range
also think
build into that
Yeah.
control to win, which takes a lot of effort. And at that point,
Yeah.
if you're putting that amount of effort in, why not roll the dice on playing the control itself and anticipating that people aren't willing to put that amount of effort into a mid range deck that
Yeah.
can play through some control. You
Well,
know?
and I think to your point, the interesting thing about Fab is that generally like triangle metas are very, they have specific, it's like this beats this, this beats this.
Mm.
What's interesting is like Fab has some interesting dynamics in it that don't kind of follow that natural line, right? We've always said that about Fab, and people have always tried to bunch everything into like these are the categories, these are the this, these are the that. A lot of that stuff doesn't translate because typically a deck like Rhinar that has good game into Icelander Oldham also should have decent game into like a Phi, because it's like it's not going to get that blown out by aggro. But if you aren't insanely practiced in the Phi Rhinar matchup, you will die, you will lose, it will end very quickly. But on the other hand, if you're also very practiced into like Oldham and Icelander, hey, guess what, guys? Icelander and Oldham playing control and Fab is about knowing the best two cards in your hand and blocking with the other two. And then playing the most efficient two card hands on your turn cycles a lot of time in control. That's what you're trying to do, knowing what to do with that.
And it's something like Reiner that kind of goes out the window.
He drastically alters their ability to follow that plan, which is why he has good game into them. The problem is he's very hard to play into a lot of other stuff. Because every matchup is very strange for him, because he also doesn't always know exactly how he's going to play into other matchups. And I think that's the problem, is to your point, Dane, people aren't practiced on the counters because it takes a lot of work to get there. And as a result, they just go, I can play Rhinar that potentially counters those decks, or can play Oldham, which is one of those decks. And then to Jason's point, I stumble into some wins. And I you also run the risk of like not acknowledging that the best players are playing those decks. It's like, guys, come on, don't be stupid. If Michael Hamilton played Phi, he'd have some spicy tech and he would kill you with it. He would destroy your soul with it. It's not because he's playing Icelander, it's because he's Michael Hamilton that he's winning these things. He just happens to really like Icelander and feel like it's positioned well in the meta. Right? Like I'm not insane for saying that Michael Hamilton has a drastic influence on what the quote unquote best deck is, right?
And I think the
it's
best
not.
players think the best deck is not Icelander. They think it's Oldham right now.
Yeah. Yep. he knows how to
And-
win that matchup.
Right. And that matchup is very hard for most players to win, except for him.
Except for him.
Because as he beat 3 of them in the
I do think
top
there's
8.
something to be said too that like Ice in general has been given basically 3 sets of consistent support.
Right.
Like of the strong archetypes that exist in the game, that archetype has received the most toys most recently. You know what
And
I
they
mean?
did nothing with Earth.
I know.
It-
Yeah.
Earth
I
got
think-
shit on the same set.
Yeah.
You just shit on Earth. This
I
is
think
Mother Earth.
a lot of the challenge of it, and like I've had this discussion with multiple people, just because I like input from other good players and other people who play the game and know what's going on. And one of the things that I think is more problematic for a lot of these dual talent decks, or these very like these decks that have specific things that they do really well, is look at Oldhim. Other than like Briar, does anything else? And again, like I get that Lexi and Levia technically maybe have some of that stuff, but let's just put them out the window. They don't do the broken thing. Oldhim and Briar have one thing in common that has caused them to be problematic from the beginning, which is they have 2 elements printed on them. They have a very good hero talent. Their skill, their hero ability is very good, and they have access to 2 other card pools on top of it. So they both have 2 talent card pools to pull from, plus the generic card pool, plus their class card pool. So they pull from 4 card pools, while most heroes pull from 2 their normal ones,
Yeah.
or a third one.
Yep.
They have access to 1 or 2.
Or
Well, I mean,
one.
I'm counting generic, like as a card
Right.
pool.
Okay, I gotcha.
Everybody gets generic. Everybody gets their class. Then the talented heroes get a third one, and then the dual talented heroes get a fourth one. And I get that Oldhim doesn't use Earth very much. He has Earth cards in his deck. And it gives him things to do that other decks can't. He has so many options. And then Icelander, basically, you run into the issue that she's effectively become the new Runeblade. Except she can use Stormstriders.
So, and that obviously that's why Starvo was so good. I wonder how he would do against Icelander. I think he'd still smoke her.
He would just kill her because dominate. You don't care what the other person's doing if you're dominating every turn.
I'm still, that hero still boggles my mind that they printed that, not thinking there would be any like.
Right.
It's ridiculous how good he was.
But again, I mean that's kind of like the next big topic that I want to hear your guys' input on, which is, what do you expect from outsiders? Because Starva was a product, I think, of the same testing regiment that we got from Tales and Monarch. And you know what? We already got confirmation that our spoiler is coming, so they can't take it away now. There has never been anything in this game more ridiculously wrong than that sequence of releases. Like that has been the worst thing they have ever done. Is Monarch, Tales, and Starvo. Like that sequence of events created an absolute shitstorm in terms of the amount of errataing and nerfing and banning that they've had to do, all directly tied to those heroes, is obscene. All of the living legend points, except for Icelander, have basically been poured in to heroes from those 3 things. Got 3 heroes, got living legend out of that, and Briar is right there on the edge. Like it's a mess. Like you can't tell me that like Tales and Monarch are fucked. Like they're just god awful sets. They really are. In the scheme of the game, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know what to think of them because nothing's been like Tales since Tales or Monarch. Just the way that, like you said, they give the extra abilities and then only support like half, and then half of the heroes are just kind of left to dry. So give really good things to some of them, but not all, especially Monarch, with the discrepancy between your your Prism and your Chain versus your Bolt and then your Levia. That's a big discrepancy between those
Yeah.
those 4 cards. I mean, 2 are gone already.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
Well, I would say
that
too that like, well, the thing like, God, I had like 3 points hit me all at once. So one,
you
as
should
like a
do
as a
pen and
side
paper.
point,
That's what I do. I got pen and paper, so there's nothing on it. You have to write it when it comes to your head.
I got little notes and then some doodles. That's mainly from when Jason's talking though. No, but like so one side point. Prism, I think you hated it, Blake, but I think that's about as close to the route that they want a living legended hero to have taken. So
Right.
but I understand there was lots of hate in the way that it played and whatever. But two, I think that even at its worst, it blows my mind that like that is the catastrophic like series of sets that came out that created this terrible like meta and all this stuff. But like even at its worst, like it's still way better than basically any other game we've ever played.
Right.
And
And
then
yeah.
so I mean like that it's a bit of I think I don't know, building up something that is I guess yeah, it was bad, but it's
Wait
not
a
worth.
second. I'm gonna counterpoint that, because is it better than any other game? Because this last set, did you guys need to buy cards? Because you kind of didn't need to buy very many cards, if any, because the older heroes were still good. We didn't get
Right.
any good enough power creep that said I have to go out and buy Dynasty right now so that I can be competitive in this meta. There was no reason to buy a case of cards for
Yeah.
that. Is there going to be a reason to buy a case of cards and outsiders if you still have cards from 2-3 sets ago as the kings and the queens of the set? So from yes, and some points it's good because everything's playable, but at the same point, you have to have people buying your product. So you
Yeah.
have to have a little bit of power creep,
So
right?
I you're arguing for those sets then because they created sales?
No, I'm
Because
saying,
I agree.
is it okay that this is happening? Because in DBS you had to buy the next set.
Well, yeah,
Otherwise you
because
weren't competitive.
everything literally changed
You don't
every
need to
set.
buy this next set. So is it good that you don't need to buy the next set? So you said that's good, but is it good?
Are we talking about sales and for the game, or are we talking about like meta and
It's all
gameplay?
encompassing. You need them both. You need both.
Well, I think that
You,
they kind of are tipping back and forth on the scales here a little bit. It's not all at
you
once.
need sales, right? You need sales.
Mm, I understand conceptually what you're saying, yes, but I would disagree that it's all encompassing. Like it's so when Blake, so you're saying that Blake saying that these were the worst sets ever, that was also applying to the sales of those sets because it doesn't sound like what you're saying because it's all
No,
encompassing.
so he said those are the worst sets ever. You said, are they? Because as we've seen in other games, you've power crept in those, and it's not bad because those cards are still playable in those sets now, right? So cards in those sets are still playable. So they're obviously not the worst set is what you were saying. And I'm
Think
saying
yeah.
you need a little bit more power creep in these newer sets. That those are the worst sets because those heroes are still super powerful.
I was saying that those
Yeah.
sets. Yeah, I agree with Blake's point that they were like some of the worst sets released, but even at their worst, they were not. They didn't create an atmosphere within the gameplay as bad as other games have created with their new set releases. That's what
Not
I
at
was
their
saying.
set release, but now they are.
I think well I
They're
think
creating it on the back end. We're how many sets away from Tails are we? We have Everfest, Uprising, Dynasty. So we're getting on our
I was
fourth set.
referring to because Blake was talking about like all the nerfs and stuff that they had to do, and it's like yes, they did, but honestly, look at
It's
the
still not
FA.
enough.
Look
They're
at the
still the
F.
strongest. You
Okay,
still have Oldham.
I see what you're saying. I see what
I'm
you're
not
saying.
trying to like argue,
right.
like say
Yeah.
something's wrong or right. I'm just saying there's a point that yes, like you're saying, DBS every set like just crushed the previous set.
And they
That
had
feels
2 pages of FAQs and erratas
right,
on
and you
13
couldn't read
different
the card.
cards.
And I
Yeah,
agree. I don't like that either.
that is way
It's a
worse than our sets.
it's a very hard balance, but I also would like to see we went from a super diverse meta to a condensed ice meta like that.
Well, I don't want to say that this is a condensed ice, but I'd say
I
the
don't.
top
I don't think.
8
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
it's pretty telling of what the best players are playing.
I'm going more off of day 2. Day 2, we saw.
Look at the
If
top
you look,
32. Just look at the diversity in the top 32.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the day 2 meta was very good, and my argument that Tails was the worst set that's ever been designed in this game. I understand that theoretically, okay, it's not the worst thing ever because we haven't had problems or it hasn't been as bad as others. Will, however, point you to the fact that if we just do something as simple as look at a banned and restricted list, currently is completely backlogged with like nothing but tail stuff. We have Winter's Wail, Stubby Hammerers, Pulse of Eisenloft. We have Belittle. We have Ball Lightning. We have Awakening. It's like they absolutely like bogged us
Mhm.
down with a ton. And these are the cards. The worst part is this: Plunder Run. Plunder Run was not created in Tales of Aria. Plunder Run was banned because of Tales of Aria. It was banned specifically because of Briar.
Briar, yeah.
People can say whatever they want about it. Oh, it was good in this too. It's good in that too. Congratulations. It was played in other decks. It was banned because of Briar, because Briar leveraged it. And it was because of a design flaw. If the card literally said elemental, earth, or lightning non-attack action, Plunder Run doesn't even, it might get played in the deck, but it's way less good and it doesn't get 9 copies played.
Mhm.
And that's my big gripe, is that there was a series of releases in the game that, granted, might not be the worst series of releases I've ever seen in a game. We played, anybody who played Destiny played when there was 5 dice droids was a thing, and it was the most broken thing I've ever played in a game because you could just delete your opponent. Imagine in Flesh and Blood if you could just say, it doesn't matter what you do, I'm going to hit you for 13 with the Crippling Crush, dominated, go again. And that would, it'd be really bad if something like that happened in game like Flesh and Blood. If we could,
and also, this is why I think the meta isn't as good. Almost half of day 2 was Tails.
right.
Yep.
46% of
Yeah.
day 2 was Tales of Aria.
Yeah. I think that
And a lot of
there,
ice for Icelander came out of Tails.
Mhm.
right.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with that.
Yeah. I just think that a lot of it comes from the fact that there was a, I don't know if it was the design philosophy that they went with. I don't know if they tried to get too cute with the design and they thought that this like dual elemental thing would be fine. I get that you have a limited window of testing and there's testing that you have to do with a certain card pool. And sometimes you're like, well, we've got 2 additional sets coming out. You're like, cool. But you should test Starvo as if some decks won't exist, or you should test Tales of Aria without Starvo. Like, you can't
So-
test future sets with the set for the set that you're releasing.
Yeah.
You can't balance the power of Outsiders based on what the set after Outsiders is going to do to it, because we have to live in that world for 3 or 4 months. If it's absolute hell because the decks are too good, then you need to do something to those decks or release solutions in the set.
So-
You can't be like, oh, the next set will fix it.
So yeah, I'm gonna raise a point that I only raise with Legend Story Studios because I think if this was any other game that we've played, I would be like, yeah, they just fucked this up. But do you guys think it's feasible that LSS is forward thinking enough that they knew that these decks are going to be powerful? They wanted to manage it a little bit and like make sure the meta, they didn't want to break it so that it was only Tails decks being played, or only like they didn't want to centralize it too much. They still wanted to be varied, but they wanted to pump enough support into these because they're going to, they know in the future, release sets that don't have any arcane support, don't have any elemental support. And but they want these heroes to be valid in 18 months, 24 months. Do you think
No.
that that's at all a possibility that they were forward thinking
No.
enough to be like, we're going to build this up a lot so it's really strong and then see if
So-
that works as a design philosophy?
Here's my counter argument to that.
Yep.
Is clearly don't they clearly realized talents were a mess. There's no doubt about
Mhm.
it. Otherwise, why would outsiders not just follow the trend? Why do we get talent now dual class? Why are we leaving talents?
They're doing something different that's new now.
Well, here's the interesting thing is that like I would argue that dual class cards are a way to support multiple classes in a way that I think they wanted talents to act. They wanted talents to create more diverse card pool so that more heroes got more support at a better rate and cards became like usable across the spectrum. The problem
Mhm.
is if you print an elemental ranger card, you don't support anybody except Lexi. And the only way that you can balance certain ranger cards is by making them elemental so that you can fuse them.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you lose the flavor of the elemental heroes. But if you print a ranger slash assassin card, you now support all assassins and all
Mhm.
rangers who've ever been released in the game without having to like obviously there's a ton of balancing and toggles they have to play with. That's
But you
one of
make
the
that card have
challenges.
to be played from Arsenal, and so you still F over your poor Ranger.
Right. I get that, right? Like but that's the design philosophy that they're going to have like problems with is that some things are going to constantly be an issue.
Mhm.
I think that dual class cards make them more diverse and they make them used across platform. They're an interesting design space that is captivating from a player stance where you're like, oh, this is cool. It works in this class better and that class not. But then they can keep supporting more classes like, more successfully
Yeah.
without the talent pool. Because what the talent thing does is to your point, Dane, creates this problem where you're like, how do we support talents without taking slots away from untalented heroes? So
Mhm.
every time they print an elemental ranger arrow attack, they now took one slot in a set away from access to cards for a deck like Azalea. A Shadow Brute card has to be a Shadow Brute card, but not a Reinhardt card. And
So
like you,
so I raised the point because I wanted to think about what LSS could have been thinking while they were designing these sets when they're going forward. I don't think that that is what they did. The build this one up knowing that they're going to move on to other things, but I I do think it's far more likely that they probably had a short list of things like how can we expand the game and still support multiple things. Well, let's try the oh my god, my fucking brain just farted out.
talents.
Talent, thank you. Let's
Yeah,
try the
there you
talent. Let's try
go.
the talent system. See how that works. See if it works the way that we're thinking that it hopefully does. Okay. On that other things on that short list were multi-class cards. Other things on that short list could be I don't even know whatever they come up with, right? But like they
Yeah.
try the talent. Now they're going on to the multi-class to see how that works. Like I think that it's much more reasonable for them to have a plan in that sense of what is and what is not going to be effective, and we'll adjust as we release sets. And if something doesn't work as
Not
well,
forward thinking. So
I
you're
think
saying they weren't forward thinking at all?
I think that is still forward thinking. I think that that is we don't know how this is actually going to play out because we're a
How is
fucking
that forward thinking? That's throwing a dart at a board. Let's hope this works.
but it's not flying by the seat of your pants because they have a
It's pretty damn close.
I I would
I
argue
think
that
that go ahead.
S-
I was
I
just
would.
going to say I would argue very simply that if they approach the game in a sense that they said this is how we're going to try this thing, then we're going to try that thing, then we're going to try that thing. It that does not feel like a game who believes in their design philosophy, which in that case I do not believe is flesh and blood because I think they have a clear vision for the game and I think that I think what happened with the talents. This is my personal opinion. I think they did exactly what they told us because to their credit, they have been very transparent. When they printed Duskblade, the worst weapon this game has ever seen, never saw, they admitted they screwed up.
Hmm.
They completely pooched it. So they've been very honest. And they said when people asked, how in God's name did Starvo, was there ever okay? And they went, well, we tested it with Plunder Run Briar and we tested it with Chain and we tested it with Prism and it seemed fine. I think they tested those sets because it's been a long time. They tested those sets during COVID. They tested them when they
Mhm.
had less testing. They had less access to one another. They had less opportunity to test those sets. They had a smaller testing pool. They weren't as big of a company. They tried them all together. They basically approved everything and moved it on so they could move on to the next thing.
Mhm.
Then everything happened and they didn't account. I just think that as a small company who is still learning, they just did not account for how fast Living Legend points could add up. That if they had to ban Plunder Run and Briar was no longer Plunder Run Briar and Chain left, Starvo would be an absolute terror.
So you're
They,
also
they,
saying that they were not forward thinking.
I'm also saying what I'm saying is that they they weren't forward thinking in like their testing and implementation to a complete like in a complete way. They had a plan, they followed their plan, but their plan had holes, but they didn't see them because they didn't have the staff, they didn't have the people.
You
My point is that I don't think that they are. Jason is trying to say that unless they have and execute a 5-year plan without making changes, without adjusting to circumstances that they couldn't foresee, without having that 5-year plan executing currently to their standard, they're not forward thinking. Because what I'm saying is that they have this plan going forward for how they're going to try different things because they're a small company, because it's a
but
new game. And I
but
think
you
that
could
that
say that about
is
anything. Then you could say, "Here's what we're gonna do," and then none of it succeeds. But you're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" And then your
and then and
stockholders are
then
like, "You guys
and
failed."
then
No, we were forward thinking though. We had this 5-year plan. None of it worked, but we were thinking about it.
see what you're doing is you're taking out the fact that you can plan for failure. That's actually super important in any
Which they
industry.
so their plan for failure was the errata and ban list.
Is now to go to multi-class cards.
Okay, so
So
here
yeah,
I'll give you my 2 cents worth. Here's my 2 cents worth. When you release card games like this,
Mhm.
and let's say they doubled the amount of workers they have and they have 60 people of very smart people. When you release this card game, release it to 10 to 15,000 people. That's that's 10 to 15,000 minus 60 more people coming up with creative ways to make decks.
Mhm.
You can't you can you can you can plan forward, but you can't plan for everything. It's impossible in a card game. There
Absolutely. Yeah.
in this type of game, there's too many combinations that you can make with generic cards. They printed too powerful of generic cards at the beginning. They had to make the game go. It's a
Yep.
necessary
Yep.
evil. Now that they're the most valuable cards, you can't ban E-strikes or command and conquers because it's just too feel bad. So we'll just see those in decks and they continue to come up. But when they did talents, as Blake said, did they forward think and think we could fix this if they get out of control? I'm sure they did. They did not succeed with it because those talents are still running the meta to this day, and they have throughout their release, whether it was Prism, whether it was Chain, whether it's Starvo, whether it's Oldham, those talents have controlled this game since their release. So did they forward think? I'm sure they did. Did they fail? They did fail a little bit.
Well,
They
what I'm saying though is that you are also looking at it from you're judging the boat that you're in right now. You're not on the shore
the
looking at
boat we're
their
in. That's as a
broad
card
fleet of
player.
boats.
So the boat over there looks fucking amazing. I can't swim that far, but this boat over here that's a brand new card game that's coming out next week is super close. I can swim there. Fuck that boat. I'm going to go swim to this boat. You can't hope it gets fixed in a game that releases in
yeah.
3 to 6
I,
2 sets in 6 months and plan for people that stay around for 6 months on something that's not good because they're forward thinking. We'll fix it in a year. We have the set ready to go. It's at the printer. It'll be out January 2024. This is going to be fixed.
yeah, I
There's
think
too many options.
yeah, I
for
think
that.
a loophole in the idea that it's like it's not the worst game that we've ever been a part of is the fact that there's a reason we're not playing those games. And
Any
like
of the
I
games.
and some of those games
Mhm.
died and some of those and it's because like Jason's analogy of the boat or your everyone's analogy of the boat
We're
very
both
easy
guys. We're both
I
guys.
can we're lake guys. We're from Minnesota. We like lakes, boats on lakes. It's a thing. But the problem is, if you're on a boat and you're like, it could be better, but it's not awful, and you're bailing water during the Starvo meta because you're sinking, and the meta is just god awful, and you literally look right next to you, you're like, no, that boat doesn't look great, but I wouldn't have to bail water there. I'll come back to this one later. But then you go over
That's
there
my
and
thing
you
is though, it's like what boats were next to us that you wouldn't have to bail water in?
For other
the
games?
grass is always greener on the other side. If their
Like,
meta's healthier,
but I mean
people chase it.
realistic, like Yu-Gi-Oh,
Right.
Pokemon, Magic.
Here's-
all of those things were suffering.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, but it's a very simple issue of the fact that it's like the grass is always greener, and if I have friends who move over there, it's like, why have we ever done anything we've done? Also, at least if you go play another game, you like, well, if you go play Magic, is it going to suck? Sure, but you know it's going to be here in 20 years. And that's basically what some people have done is they've said, you know what? I tried Flesh and Blood. I did it during the Starvo meta. It was the worst experience I've ever had as a card gamer. I went back to Magic.
That's fair.
That's just what I did.
That's totally
People
fair.
left and went to they went back to Yu-Gi-Oh. Like Jacob, who's I love Jacob to death, and I wish he was here, but he had such a god awful experience during like the Cheerios Briar. He literally left playing the game.
Yeah, and went back to Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yu-Gi-Oh. And it's like, is it a bad experience? Yeah, but that's the game he played first, and at least he knows what to expect there.
Yeah.
And the problem that LSS ran into, again, and this is just my opinion. It's not gospel, but I'm a very smart person and I know a lot of things. They had this issue at they are card game players. This is a company of card game like people who played card games their whole lives. We love that because they do things that make the experience amazing for other people who have played games their whole life. I think that they're just like blind spots that they don't see.
Yeah.
Number one, they did the living legend thing. They had it all figured out, and then they didn't. It was retroactively. They're like, yeah, we kind of didn't do math on this. You're like, you literally do nothing but math. You've played cards your whole lives. Your life is about math. How did you screw that up so bad? It's like it took card players, again, to Jason's point, it took us like the 15,000 people playing the game 11 seconds to go, just so you guys are aware, something's going to living legend in about 11 minutes if you don't change the point system. And they were like, that's a good call. We should change the point system. And they changed it, but then they never thought about how that in turn would impact the meta, because they went, well, we created the living legend system. It's a great system. And then didn't think about the fact they're like, wait, so how bad is Starvo if Chain's not around? If Siege Chain doesn't exist? And Starvo came out and it's like, oh God, it's that bad. It's real bad.
So I want to, because we're getting close. We gotta be getting close to an hour here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's how I want to end this. One, we need somebody to come up with us to debate that we're gonna roll for, because I could roll and on this argument, I could take any side of it, and roll with it strongly, and I think that sounds amazingly fun. So please, somebody comment for us to do that.
And I don't know what Jason was saying earlier about there needing to be like 6 sides to the debate. Like just fucking
2 to 3 sides.
This versus
it'd be fun if there was 3 sides, but that's really hard in debate. But just 2 sides.
Yeah. Typically, I think structurally it's typically 1v1.
What you need in a debate like this with 3 people is you need 2 sides, and then one person gets to play like chaotic neutral. Right, where like you just sit in the middle and you go back and forth, and you just try to like you're the conversation lubricant.
Yep.
So my next thing is I think this year is a big year for Flesh and Blood. Sales are still fine, right? Cards are still going up. This year is tremendously important, and the reason I say that is, one, if Disney's card game throws money at it for competitive players, that's dangerous for any card game, right?
Disney has more money than anybody else.
Yeah, we don't know that's going to happen, but if it does, that's dangerous for a lot of card games.
Yeah.
Period. Whether you like the game. I mean, look at Dagon playing MetaZoo because they threw money at it.
It's got money.
Yeah, he didn't like the game, nothing about it. He just knew how to play it and play it well. And then he ripped them and got kicked out, but he went and played that game. Yeah. The Calling in Indianapolis had 481 players. That's a stagnant number of players for these callings, correct?
Yep.
That's
I would push back on that a little bit with the fact that while it is stagnant, the number of those things is rising, which means people
The
aren't
volume
going to
of
travel.
callings.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
the volume of callings go up. The number is going to flatten a little bit because less
Right.
people are going to travel across the
This
country.
was the first big one. Like I would have expected closer to be 600 players here.
I will say too that
I was a little
also think,
shocked at 480.
yeah, I think some of that is the fact that the Indy Calling the timing was weird on like the BNR. Like they gave it out enough time in advance, like normal. The problem is there's a new set coming out. We have the BNR. Like it was kind of a weird area where a lot of people who were thinking about going to it, I think people who weren't insanely confident or didn't have a good testing team and they really thought they could win. There are people who were like, I might shy away from this one, like that middle tier
And
competitive player.
a little bit to Blake's point too is I think that it was also a weird time of year. Like
It's strange, yeah.
yeah, it's like it's not like in the throes of being hyped about
I
new
thought this is
sets
when
or
people wanted this stuff to start. That was the whole point of
They-
doing it like this.
They do, and I think that's 100% true. But I think
Mhm.
that like we just came off a ProQuest season where plenty of people were playing back to back to back weekends, and then it was a calling. I think that they would have done better, give it a couple more weeks to the calling, and they should have done the calling on Outsiders release weekend or when there was like spoilers. They
Which I'm surprised they
make it a
didn't
big,
do it
yeah,
on that, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah.
That's
I
a
think
little
that was
weird.
just
And then
I think
get
that
out
I
of
think that
fucking
yeah,
Indianapolis too. Like, honest to God,
yeah.
I'm sorry
The
if you live
obsession.
there. Like, I'm really sorry if you live there. But come on. Well, how many things have they done at Indy now? Is this the third or fourth one?
This is the second calling in
Go to
back-to-back
Chicago.
years,
Go
I think.
somewhere
Yeah.
like that. Like, I've been to
Yeah.
Indy enough because of lacrosse, because they put fields. They got to get people there somehow. So they make these amazing fields. But other
Yeah.
than that, man, the city sucks.
I
Sorry.
really wish they would move. The city choosing in America reeks of
Like
not knowing
if they would have said
America.
Minneapolis in February, I'd be like, "What are you guys thinking? No,
Yeah.
don't bring people here in
Right.
February to
Yeah.
Minneapolis. That's ridiculous."
Yeah, in the
This is a
Midwest,
horrible choice.
yeah, the Midwest in the winter is a strange choice for
Right.
for
I mean,
anything. Yeah.
it's and then this is I want to get trash, so I'm gonna say this. Why are we the options of masks? Like every other sporting event, football games with 65,000 people in a room, we don't have to wear masks. I see this and you have to wear masks the whole time. You're required. I'm out. I'm sorry. I'm over it.
Yeah.
I
I
am
will say that
100% over it at this
yeah.
point. If you want to wear a mask,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Wear a mask.
Yeah.
But don't require me to go play cards. It's so annoying. I hate it.
It's an odd that is an odd thing
It
to
feels
me that
odd.
like
Yeah, it feels odd that
yeah.
it is not a requirement other places. When it was a
Yeah.
requirement everywhere, I get it.
Yeah.
Everyone's still like, what is this? Like,
Yep.
let's just wear masks.
But
be safe.
I
Got
will
it.
not
But
do an
if
event
yeah, if
until
I go
that's
to a
gone.
Gopher hockey game and I'm surrounded by, yeah, like you said, fucking 10,000 people that are not wearing masks and we're fucking nut to butt going to concessions in between periods, like, yeah, I'm wearing a mask playing card games in a huge fucking auditorium feels really dumb.
Dane only got to stay 2 periods because the third complaint of being nut to butt with a random guy in the concession line where they're like, dude, there is 3 feet behind you. Why are you on top of me? Like,
No,
man,
dude, it's
I can't.
full. It was
I
full.
can't help
Gopher
it.
hockey's
I can't help.
fucking
I'm just here to get some popcorn, baby.
I don't like to be too close. That's another
Yeah.
good thing. I like in when I'm out in public, I like the 12-inch rule at least, maybe 18
Yeah.
inches all around, no matter who you are or what you are. Get away
Look,
from me. 18 inches.
I have zero
You'd
issue
have a
with that
hard
6
time at like fucking
six-
major sporting events.
So I bring my
Six
son. He clears them out for me.
6-foot rule would have been entirely fine to just stick around in society. Like it's okay.
Oh yeah,
like,
I could
we could
live
do
with
away
the
with a lot
6-foot
of we
rule.
could do away with a lot of things, but the 6-foot rule should stay. Strangers can stay 6 feet away from me at all times because that would just make me feel better, right?
And
Like,
also, it doesn't hinder you at all from being a social butterfly because you have a booming voice. So
I have a booming
you're like,
voice.
you
I'm
can
loud,
still be
and
the social butterfly that you are.
I
from 6 feet
I can
away.
still make friends from 6 feet away.
All right, do we
People
wanna hit
usually
anything else?
optionally stay away from me.
Hit
so.
anything else?
I got
before
nothing
the
else
end?
for today.
No.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll say one thing because it feels like have done a lot of negative Nancying, which again, as much as I'm a social butterfly, my friends give me a hard time and I try to be better about not being a
Once in a
negative
while.
Nancy all the time. Um Jesus, Blake, why is everything so? I literally said I just like this. Why are you making it terrible? I'm like, I don't know. I just hate everything. I will say I am more excited about Outsiders than I have been about a set in a long time, because one thing is coming in Outsiders that I think some people have missed, because it's not coming in Outsiders. There is no arcane damage, which means there's the potential with dual class cards with
Have a
6
good
draftable heroes and
draft
no
for draft.
arcane damage for the draft experience to be absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
I am so excited, and I'm ready to be heartbroken about it, but I'm gonna be excited about it because you know what? I haven't been excited to draft a set of this game probably since WTR.
WTR is
We
still
definitely
the
had to force
king.
it a bit. Yeah.
WTR is still the king of drafting.
Yeah.
It's the king of drafting because it's all about the gameplay of Flesh and Blood and what I was sold in the game, which is it's player versus player combat. It's 2 heroes entering the arena, going blow to blow, and then we made Briar and it completely invalidated. It's like, what's the point of playing
Fi
this
goes
game?
Kamehameha, and you're like,
Yeah.
you just hit me 18 times. What? How did you get
Congratu-
all? Where did you even get all those cards? You started with 4. How is there 18 cards out on this? How is this possible?
I don't know what the YouTube channel is, but I will give a glowing recommendation. If somebody can say it in the comments, feel free to do it. There was a YouTube, or I think it was a YouTube. I gave them some watches. I hope it was YouTube because I watched their videos, a couple of them. But they got me really good one day when they made a video about, and this I'll get to the Fi thing. They made a video about Kano. They were like the Kano versus Kano game. I think I sent it to you guys.
Yeah.
It was literally, it's like, I activate Storm Striders. In response, I activate Storm Striders. In response, I pitch I have Ophidia to Kano. And they do a bunch of in response. And the guy goes, Ocean of Deja Vu. And then it just loops the video and it plays the same 30-second clip like for 2.5 minutes. And then at the very end of it, it goes black. The guy goes, whose turn is it? I don't know. And I was like, oh my God, it's the Wizard Mirror. But so I watched another one of their videos. It was like, it said what it's like playing Fi, and the guy was like, 0 for 3 with go again. It's like 1 with go again, 1 with go again, 3 with go again, with go again, draw 2 cards, 8 with go again, 1 with go again, 2 with go again, and the video starts to every time the guy's sitting there watching it, he's like confused looking at the cards, and all of a sudden the guy is like 9 mats down, like there's 9 mats lined up. The guy is at the other end of the room. He's like, 1, go again. And he puts the card down. He's like, 2, go again. And the guy's just, they zoom back in. The guy's just like, ad sitting at the table while the guy's on the other end of the room playing his like 50th card in a row. I was like, oh, that was good. That was,
Yeah,
it
that's
made
solid.
me, it got a good
Accurate.
chuckle out of me. So
It's
I don't
accurate.
know who it is, but if you know and you want to comment it and give them credit, I'll link whatever their thing is in the comments if somebody gives me who it is.
That's all we got.
That's all I got.
Look at
That's
that.
it.
I'm excited. I'm excited for something.
No other games.
No other
Fab
games.
Blood
channel.
Bowl. Blood Bowl.
We planned another game segment. I played 4 games of Blood Bowl this week so we could talk about another hobby, and then we never talked about it.
I'll start us next week with that. We'll
All right.
start with Blood Bowl.
Start with Blood Bowl. And then all the
All the
fab people
fab.
will unsubscribe. We're going to be down 5
We'll
more
lose another 5
next week.
subscribers.
We're never going to give those heralds away. Suck it, listeners.
I took him off this week's video because we just aren't. We drop back below the first tier. So it's
First tier. I don't even, at this point, it's just a meme. It's like
At
we're
this
just
point,
randomly. Yeah.
every time we hit 1600, we'll give another set away. How about that?
That's like the new thing. At 1,600 subscribers, we'll give them away because we're going to lose. We're going to dip. We're going to go back to 1,600.
Yeah.
We're going to do it 5 times.
Speaking of static, speaking of fucking flatlining. All right. That's all we got, though. Thank you for joining us for another week. It is good to be back, and we look forward to picking up the conversation next week, seeing what you guys comment and your thoughts. Make sure you put a thought for what we should debate, because I also want to do that. That video was super cool. But yeah, throw that in the comments as well. And Andrew, we look forward to seeing what you have to say.
Yeah, vote on the debate, and we'll have a winner, and we'll crown them. Be great.
Someone usurp Andrew as the comment king. I want to see what that looks like. Oh, Jason wasn't happy with that. Oh, he was taking his photo. Never
He's
mind.
taking his
Doing I always have to do it while we're on here.
All of a sudden, I say that, and Jason just goes,
There's my angry face. Immortal Hulk.
you said you didn't want to talk MCP. You're the one who brought it up. All right, that's all we got.
I know, it's awesome.
Everybody,
Great.
peace.